Market Prospects, delivering timely information and education to prairie farmers for 30 years. Market Prospects is brought to you by the University of Saskatchewan's Department of Bioresource Policy, Business and Economics, and these sponsors. Log on to marketprospects.usask.ca to view past programs and for information on upcoming programs.
For our Market Prospects interview this week, we focus on the world oilseed situation and outlook. Joining us from Chicago is Daniel Basse, president of AgResource Company. Mr. Basse, it's again a pleasure to have you on Farmgate.
Well, it's good to be back with you again, and I look forward to talking about the outlook and going into a little more depth of what's going on in the world oilseed markets.
Okay, well, let's begin with the current state of global oilseed stocks, demand, and prices, and what do you expect for the rest of the current crop year?
Well, Bob, I've been doing this, this is my 36th year of doing analysis, and the oilseed situation is rather bearish right now, unfortunately. I would like to tell your farm clients that better times lie ahead, but that is only going to be due to currency. As we look at oilseeds around the world, we're getting farmers producing record crops almost in each hemisphere. We had a record crop in the U.S. last year. We have nearly 4 billion bushels. We have 6 billion bushels, or 165 million metric tons being produced in Brazil. At the same time, we're finding the big driver of world oilseed demand, China, starting to slow down. And so as we see the Chinese start to become more regular in their buying habits, as opposed to the stop and start kind of method that we've been seeing in the last few years, it's going to provide some downward pressure on price. And so I would be advocating to Canadian farmers and North American farmers in general to be looking for opportunities to be pricing soybeans on any spring weather rallies that are associated, as I said, with weather. So we are negative, unfortunately, just on building supplies on a global standpoint.
So what is the status for the current soybean crop in South America and its movement to market?
Brazilian farmers are looking at harvesting their second largest crop, second record crop in a row. This year's crop is estimated by AgResource somewhere around 95 million metric tons, 95.1 to be exact. That is up substantially by last year's crop of 86 million tons. So we've added 9 million tons to the Brazilian crop. And the farmer down there has been a slow seller because of the Brazilian real. Again, this is a year of currency, not so much grain supplies, but in Brazil, the real has declined versus the dollar from about 2.7 to 3.25. And so when we think about that, that's the equivalent of $13 soybeans yet to a U.S. or Canadian farmer. And so with that in mind, the Brazilian farmer has been a slow seller. And in Argentina, we have a new election coming forward in October. That election has 2 candidates out of 3 that are talking about reducing taxes, at least to the farm sector. So those producers, along with the Brazilian farmers, have been very slow marketers this year. We find the Brazilian farmer at 40% sold in the soybean crop, Argentina somewhere around 15%. And generally speaking, we'll expect those sales to increase on rallies, but I'd be surprised at least if the farm community is very active, as they're still seeing currency weakness versus the dollar, something that they look to continue at least for another few weeks.
How is acreage competition between soybeans and corn in the U.S. expected to play out this spring, and what will that mean for world oilseed markets?
Well, we've got a big U.S. crop report here on the 31st of March, which will delineate what farmers' intentions are. And currently, AgResource is expecting that U.S. soybean acreage will be about 85.5 million acres. Now, that's up about 2 million acres from what the USDA was suggesting in their outlook for them. On corn, we're forecasting acreage at 89 million acres. And so we're looking for a decline in corn this year of 1.5 million. A lot of those acres go to beans. I would also tell you sorghum is a crop we're going to see a big increase in the U.S. this year because of demand from China. But in terms of oilseeds, in terms of soy supplies, if we have an average growing season, the U.S. could harvest its first 4 billion bushel soybean crop, and we could see our end stocks in the United States here rise up over 600 million bushels for the first time in history. So with all of that, we're modeling out anyway that soy prices here in the United States, which is currently at around $9.50 a bushel, could drop all the way to $7.50 as we think about the harvest coming in October or November.
So given what we discussed so far, what are you predicting for world demand, supply, and prices for oilseeds in 2015-2016?
Now remember, when we talk about prices, we need to talk to them about your local currency. The Canadian dollar, we think, will decline to about 70 cents, so that should help rape and soy production within Canada. In terms of what Latin America will do, we expect the Brazilian real maybe to drop to 4 to 1. So there'll be additional incentive, if you will, for Brazilian and Argentinian farmers to go forward and plant more acres down there. All of this falls back on the shoulders of the United States farmer. Here in the U.S., it's the U.S. soybean farmer that somehow has to shift to other crops or maybe look at idling acres. It won't happen this crop campaign, but it'll take a year or so. If the market judges that we have to somehow limit Brazilian production in the 2016 crop year, that may take a soybean price below $7 to get that accomplished. So we would envision any rallies in the soybean markets to 10 to 10.25 as a prime selling opportunity. The only thing that would change this negative outlook would be weather adversity, whether it's the United States, China, Canada, or Europe. At this point in March, it's a little difficult to gauge that, but I want to at least point out that the price trends are down based on supply pressures unless somehow we find weather adversity in the key growing months of May, June, and July.
Well, great information and insights, Mr. Basse. Thanks for coming on Farmgate.
You're very welcome. I enjoyed being with you again. Have a good year.
And we'll return with more on Farmgate right after a few messages.